10 north to the 405 north transition. Look out for a wreck there onto the shoulder.
Is this the
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
It's time to jump it up. The NBA regular season tips off today with the Lakers at the defending champion Denver Nuggets. 4:30 tip-off this afternoon on TNT. The last time the Lakers saw the Nuggets, they got swept in the Western Conference Finals. 21st NBA season for LeBron James, his 6th with the Lakers. LeBron will be 39 on December 30th. An early milestone to keep your eye on. LeBron is the NBA's all-time leading scorer with 38,652 points. He's only 1,348 points away from 40,000. If LeBron plays all 82 games, which is unlikely, he would need to average 16.4 points. LeBron's career scoring average is 27.2. Keep your fingers crossed that LeBron can stay healthy. He missed 27 games last season. The Clippers open up Thursday night at home against Portland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Tavis Smiley, and I'm delighted to have you in with us in this final hour of today's program. That's the sound of Ann Nesby. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? We played that song at the top of our show today, a couple hours ago. And I think we played it in part because I said to Miles, our board op, that the title of this book that we're going to get into in this hour reminded me of that song that I heard countless times growing up in a little Pentecostal church back in the Midwest. The book we're discussing this hour is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here. Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way. I said a couple of hours ago, a whole lot of us could have written a book with that title. I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here. And so that title sort of reminded me of that song, that I am only here. I'm only here by the grace, right? Every one of us is here by the grace. And so the book is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here. Finding My Voice, Finding My People, and Finding My Way. As I said, it's a book that I could have written, and many other black folk could have written a book with that title. I think we all know that if it were not for somebody on our side, the Lord in my case, the forces of darkness might have prevailed and we wouldn't be where we are. So the title itself of this book is a testimony. The author of that book is named Jonathan Conyers, and I am pleased to have Jonathan Conyers live in studio to share his version of that particular story. I wasn't supposed to be here. Jonathan Conyers, good to welcome you to Tavis Smiley. How are you today, sir?
Doing good. How you doing, Mr. Smiley?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am delighted to have you in studio, and thank you for the book, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about it in this hour. I don't mean to proselytize, and again, I explained why we played that song because it just sort of connected some dots for me in my own head. But when you think about where you are and that you weren't supposed to be here, to what do you attribute the fact that you are here?
Yeah. So one, I contributed to my village.
Mm-hmm.
So as a major theme in my book, I talk about village members and how do you build a village and how do you lean on people to be guideposts throughout your life when you're trying to figure things out, when you're going through some tough times. And you said it perfectly, right? Like, it's when I was going through the process, like, the title just felt so simple to me. I was like, based on all the things I've been through, based on mentors, based on, looking at black men and how we're treated and how society, puts us in these boxes and a lot of the trials and tribulations we have to face that technically we're born into. And as things started to happen in my life, from graduating college and working for the number one hospital in the country, from being a part of this beautiful nonprofit that I've helped co-found, and the world donating all the money they donated to help our cause and help kids throughout the inner city in New York City, I just kept feeling like in these spaces, how am I here? How am I having these conversations? How am I prevailing? How am I able to give back to all of these amazing people that, one, have helped me throughout my life, and to the new youth and to the new generation that aspires to be something great or see me as a role model or a goalpost that they can hit one day. So I just kept, as I was writing, as I was going through the journey, and as people was coming to me with offers to write a book, it just kept saying, like, how am I here? I wasn't supposed to be here. So sometimes when you're a black author, you're in this box, right?
Yeah.
All you have to do is talk about the black experience, and you only have one target audience when you're writing a book. And I wanted to be a little bit unique in that. And obviously I'm black, from the Bronx. I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations.
The boogie down.
Yeah, so that was okay. Yeah, that was a fact. We knew that, but I think there was a lot more lessons that I was able to teach and tell that made it more general to everybody.
We'll get straight away into the book and learn more about the backstory that you're talking around. We're going to talk right at it when we come forward. The book is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way. And it occurs to me as Jonathan is talking, there's a distinct difference between being willing to admit and to say with humility, I wasn't supposed to be here. As I said earlier, that's the story of many African Americans. We know that we have succeeded against the odds, we've achieved against the odds, we weren't supposed to be here. But it seems to me that's a very different statement than feeling like you don't belong.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say I wasn't supposed to be here. It's another thing to feel like you don't belong when you get there. Again, we have a great hour, lots to talk about as we move through this hour with our guest, the author of this book, John Conyers. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since '92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience, temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
If you are a private individual or a small business owner who has had problems obtaining a business loan, credit card, or just even acquiring an apartment, please call Alliance Hillview LP for a free consultation at area code 510-459-6001. That's area code 510-459-6001. Remember, don't let your past determine your future.
Happy birthday, Metro K-Line. Whether traveling for business or pleasure, it's time you made today a K-Line day. The K-Line can connect you with fun, food, friends, and family from Crenshaw to Inglewood in one safe, clean, comfortable ride. Take the K-Line today and experience the diversity that makes LA such a great place to live, work, and play. Make it a K-Line day. Go Metro. Visit metro.net/K-Line.
After a big dinner, my nighttime heartburn would keep me up. I'd be taking antacid after antacid all night long. But then I tried Prilosec OTC. Just one pill a day blocks my frequent heartburn for a full 24 hours, giving me one-and-done heartburn relief. Without heartburn keeping me up, I could have a restful night's sleep.
Prilosec OTC. One pill a day, 24 hours, zero heartburn.
It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
I was crossing the street when I met the love of my life. I chased after her. Nothing would stand in my way. Not the dog walker, nor the hot dog vendor. Finally reaching her, I asked, "What do you call that amazing smell?"
It's Gain Flings.
Gain Flings. My love had a name, but more importantly, it had a scent.
Fall in love with Gain Flings. Seriously good scent. Gain Flings with 50% more freshness ingredients versus leading bargain detergent.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Jonathan Conyers, who joins us in studio. I wasn't supposed to be here. Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way is the author of his book, is the title rather of his book. I suspect you've been called John Conyers more than once in your life.
Yes, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine.
I knew John Conyers well, and he was a fraternity brother of mine, so I knew him well, and so I will call you Jonathan Conyers. So not to confuse you with the late, great congressman out of Detroit, John Conyers. So Jonathan Conyers is our guest live in studio in this hour on Tavis Smiley. We're glad to have you tuned in. So take me back to 8th grade and give me a sense of what was happening to you and with you around that time.
Yeah, so around 8th grade, I was I just came. So I was in Virginia for a while. I was born in Chesapeake, Virginia, and a little bit of backstory there is that my parents, they battled with addiction. So a lot of back and forth between the Bronx, New York, and Chesapeake, Virginia in my early on days. And, from kindergarten to 5th grade, I am in Virginia. Mm-hmm. Got to drive the cheese bus to school. Even though you're on, neighborhood is poor, you're fighting for resources, everybody went to one school in a central location. So you still had a good, decent education. Down south life, everything's slow. And then 6th grade, I'm in the big New York City in the Bronx. I'm going through metal detectors. You're trying to find your crowd. You're going through all of these things. Your head is spinning. Why am I being patted down? I'm in 6th grade, and it's just a whole different world, whole different environment. And instantly, you want to fit in. You want to be a kid. You want to be tough. You want to survive. So you find your crowd. And unfortunately, that crowd wasn't the right crowd. And fast forward a little bit, me and one of my close friends broke into a house in the Bronx, New York. He ended up being sent away. I ended up kind of getting a slap on the wrist. And that was kind of the start of a little bit of trajectory of roller coaster for my life. Mm-hmm. And not to say, the title of the book is I wasn't supposed to be here. I literally wasn't supposed to be here. I was my parents' 5th child. Very bad in their drug addiction at that time. I was supposed to have been an abortion, but the doctor wouldn't perform it because my mother had a bad hernia. So that's how the journey kind of starts. Mm-hmm. And it kind of starts a roller coaster of my life with the robbery and my mother trying to figure out, what is it? How can she better assist me and give me resources? And one of the things I would definitely like to highlight, don't want to disrespect Mama in no circumstance, no matter if her struggles or not. It's one of the things that's very unique about the book is me and my mother's relationship, and in middle school and what we're kind of going through, and the idea that yes, she's not perfect, and yes, she made tons of mistakes, but my mother never missed a parent-teacher conference. She drove me to my first day of college. She was there when I became a teenage dad. And sorry, I'm talking a little advanced, and you'll segue, dude. You're the best.
I'm following you. Go ahead.
And basically, all of these moments throughout my life where I'm going through things, Mama still was there. even if she was imperfect, even if she was going through things. And again, you hear these stories. You hear drug addiction, you hear poverty, you hear robbery. You're like, oh, that's the typical black man's perspective, or that's what typical black kids in the inner city go through. And I disagree. I think drug addiction is complicated. A lot of times you look at Hollywood, you look at how we portray people, you look at the mom who's strung out on crack and she's begging for money and she's not taking care of kids. My story is a little different than that. My mom, yes, she battled with crack addiction, but she came home every night. She read books with me. When they tried to put me in a system where they said this kid kid should have a special education. He's not up to par. He can't read. He's in the 2nd grade. She sat with me. She took her time. She taught me the power of education. She taught me why I was special. She spoke life into me. So I talk about that theme because a lot of times you get these platforms and you hear the sad story, you start to point the fingers. Oh, this had to be broken. My dad struggled with addiction too. He did a lot of tough things that it's hard to forgive. It's hard to think about, but he showed up every night. He went to work every day. He could have did drugs all day, but he never missed a day of work. And he did the best he could to provide for his 4 boys and his 1 girl. So, it's a real roller coaster and complicated relationship of me and these characters who I still consider part of my village members, who I still give a lot of credit through the good and the bad. And specifically, once that moment happened in 8th grade, you see me starting to fight more with my parents, me starting to ask more questions of why these patterns are continuing to happen, and me starting to figure out, like, who can I lead on to help me instead of doing the bad things to fit in and protect myself and find my crowd and be safe. Who do I lean on? And you start to get this idea of, like, who's going to be the people that's going to guide me and get me out of these situations.
I went to 8th grade because I knew that 8th grade, of course, going through the book, I knew that 8th grade was a turning point for you of sorts. I didn't want to interrupt. You said a few things now that I want to go back and give you a chance to unpack because I think they're worth interrogating. Let me start with this. Your mother, that's an arresting story. There are a lot of us who were born to mothers who had choices to make at these pivotal moments in their lives. And some choose abortion, some choose to give life. In your case, as you mentioned and talked about in the book, an abortion was an option, but the doctor wouldn't perform it because your mom had a hernia. So when we talk about a book titled I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, to your point, that's how your story literally begins, that you weren't supposed to be here. Before I do anything else, how do you process that reality, that you could not be sitting in front of me right now? You could not have been the author of this book. You could not be living had that doctor agreed to perform that abortion, even though your mom had a hernia. How do you process the fact that you are here, given that as the beginning of your story?
What I process it is that my story's already written. So many times I'm in these positions of powers, I'm in these rooms, and I'm always wondering what's going to happen. What should I say, or how should I carry myself, or should I not say the wrong thing, or should I be honest, should I be brutal, should I really talk about what's on my heart and my mind? And I always go back to the fact that, dude, you wasn't supposed to be here, literally, and you're here. And I'm just a human being living an experience, and God has already written my story for me, and it's just up to me to just keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward, keep giving thanks, and understand that it's just my job to wake up every day, give my all, and that whatever's meant for me is meant for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. And at first, and I don't want to be dishonest, at first it was hard. It was hard when I first found that story out. You get this sense of, why am I not good enough? Do I belong? Why didn't she want me? Or why didn't he want me? And but then you start to learn more. You start to unpack your family's history. You start to unpack what they're going through. You become an adult, and you start to see things differently from, these are people who are homeless with 4 kids already with a uncontrollable drug addiction. Why would they want a 5th kid? And it's funny, my mom calls me all the time. She's like, you're the one who takes care of me. The kid that I didn't want is been my biggest blessing. The one who provides for me, the one who doesn't judge, the one who always shows up for me, even when you're still battling a lot of things I did for you. And, it's just one of those things where it's like, you just give grace. You still respect those that brought you into this world. And you pray and you hope that when their day comes, that they have healed and that they have become better, and that, through my hard work and through all the things I'm accomplishing, I always tell my parents, I'm still 50% of both of you. What would you have done if this didn't get control of you? What would you have done if they didn't put these drugs in our communities? I look at the backstory of my parents. My father was a Golden Glove champion in New York City, DJ, a 4.0 in high school. My mother was a junior in nursing school, sung at the Apollo. almost won the Apollo, did amazing things, star student. And they have 5 kids who all got degrees, who are all homeowners, you know. So me and mom would always laugh. I said, if they didn't get you, Ma, you would have been a CEO.
Yeah.
You know, so,
What?
you know, it's one of those things where you don't try to judge. And,
Yeah.
you know, just I thank God that I'm here and I'm supposed to be here. And I understand that now that I do supposed to be here. And that my story's already been written before I even knew how to speak, talk, or before I was even put into this earth.
What do you I want to frame this and phrase this the right way. Given what your mother attempted to do initially, and again, you've explained it, why they in that situation would not have wanted a 5th kid. But it didn't happen. It wasn't supposed to happen. You weren't supposed to be here, but you are here. So in that regard, you were supposed to be here. To your point, your story's already written. But give me a sense of how you think that frames the relationship that you and your mother have had. I'm just imagining a mother who attempts to abort a baby, can't do it because the doctor won't do it because she has a hernia, and then that child comes to the world anyway. So it's one thing for you to express, as you did earlier, that you, when you learned the story, had questions of why I wasn't good enough and why I didn't belong and why you didn't want me, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm wondering what's going through your mama's head and how that impacts her relationship with the child that comes anyway. Does that make sense?
Yes. From her perspective, and I could just tell you, I've never really directly asked her that question, which is a great question. Maybe interesting to ask her. But a lot of times, so early on, how I kind of found out was my mom, the first time I found out I was a kid. I was young, very young, like 7. And I shouldn't have knew at that time. And something was happening, and my mom was like, she said something along the lines of like, Lord, like, why didn't I want this kid? He's so special. Like, it was kind of like her praising me and motivating me. Yeah. And in that moment, she kind of said she didn't want, and I started to ask questions. Like, what do you mean?
One of those Freudian slips, as
yeah.
they call it. Yeah.
And I started to ask questions, and she told me, and my mother is a very brutal, honest person. She doesn't lie. She just says what she wants. And sometimes it's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
And my dad was very frustrated. Like, why would you tell the kid that? Why would you do that? So early on, it was a lot of times as I was growing up, even to this day as an adult, she gets to her moments where she's like, how could I not have wanted you? It was never a sense of I was treated indifferent because she was forced to have me. It was never a sense of I went through something extra different in the journey because she didn't want to have me. It was one of those things where once she couldn't get the abortion, my father was like, just keep the kid. It is what it is. We just figure it out with other four like we have. So it felt like a lot of times she overcompensated for me. Or, you know, I'm the youngest. So I started to get them in a little bit when they were healing. So I got pieces of them that maybe my siblings didn't get when they were really, really deep into their addiction. So it was a lot of I'm sorry, or a lot of like random moments of crying, like how could I have done that for you? So you've seen a lot of guilt from my mother growing up. And then she tried to compensate, but addiction is complicated. So you try to compensate, then you go back into it, then you come out, then you go back into it. So from my mother's perspective, it weighed heavy on her. And I think it still weighs heavy on her, of the idea of the fact that look at all the great things he's doing, and I was going to end that.
Yeah. How have you matured? How have you aged? How have you lived the life that you've lived to date and not found yourself in judgment of your mother? I hear the love in your voice, but to your point, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And one, I know a lot of people. Who are still judging their parents all these years later. They've still not forgiven their parents all these years later. They've still not come to terms with what happened all these years later. They still need therapy all these years later. How have you navigated all these years and not stood or sat in judgment of your mother and your father for that matter?
Well, I think I do.
Okay.
I think I've sat in judgment with them.
Okay.
I think I've reminisced a lot.
Let me ask you a question, a different question. How have you navigated through that judgment?
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's complicated. I was just doing a speech at Columbia Law School, and me and one of the law students had like a whole disagreement on what forgiveness was and why is it important. And my theory on it was that I didn't forgive them for them. I forgave them for me.
And what was his take or her take?
And their take was forgiveness is giving them back the power.
Ooh.
And I was saying that
Ooh.
no, the fact so I didn't think it was a wrong answer.
Yeah.
I didn't think she was wrong. She didn't think I was wrong at the end of it. And I was like, that's very interesting. And I was like, the fact that you haven't forgiven them and you're sitting here dwelling over it about me while you're about to graduate from one of the top law programs in the country and you're still sad and you're still miserable when I could see you making change, well, I could see how hard you have fought to get away from that rope that they have on you. How do you win? So you think you don't have the power, but you're dwelling every day on the choices they made. And so my theory was I forgave, and I forgave for me. I needed to come to terms with what they did. And forgiveness doesn't mean forget. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you're not susceptible to judgment. Forgiveness does not mean that there are not days where I look at them and say, like, well, you have your moments. But ultimately, I've come to a place where I understand that their choices wasn't personal, that their choices didn't define me as a person. It had nothing to do with me. That was more about them. And it was a lot of things that they had to unpack and that they had to deal with. And that it was strictly that they were ignorant to a lot of things. It was strictly the fact that they were selfish. And why am I going to continue to let that hold me down? So what I've done was I forgave them, and I've worked, and I wrote about it. And I told them, you will not tell me what to write in this book. You have to deal with the choices you have made. And a lot of times while writing this book, I tell people, like, I realized while writing the book how much I wasn't healed. How much judgment I did have for them, and that sometimes this character that I was placing that I'm good and it doesn't bother me was a facade. And I had to seek therapy. I had to figure out why all these things happening to me. So it's a back and forth. It's a tug of war. It's not, you can love and forgive and still have your moments when you've been through so much hurt, when you've been through so much pain, and the people that's supposed to love you and provide for you put you through these moments. It's like slipping back into the darkness, and you just go back and forth with it.
Would you say then that the writing of the book and wrestling with this journey was therapeutic and healing in any way?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. At first, it was like you're opening up scars, you open up wounds, and you get to the point where it's like, you really start to break down what you've been through and how it makes you feel. And for so long, when you've just put your head down and you've just work, where you've tried to ignore it, where you try to say, I'm a man, forget this, forget what this means, just work. And you start to look at the success and you say, oh my God, look at everything that's happening. That didn't define me. I knew I was better than that. But then when you sit down and you unpack it, and you're forced to sit in a room and write that story, when you're forced to walk through that crack home, or you're forced to walk through that abandoned apartment where you're evicted from, you start to say, whoa. No amount of success, no amount of money, no amount of fame, attention can erase this. How do you deal with these demons? How do you unpack this? And also, I've been very fortunate where I'm able to have these real conversations with my parents. A lot of times there are people who are fighting these issues and they're trying to talk, and there's no sense of forgiveness. There's no sense of accountability. I've been very lucky to have parents who have been accountable. I've been very lucky to have black parents who have created a safe space and say, hey, this is what I've done. I apologize. I am sorry. I've got to hear those words, and I've had a lot of friends who come to me and say, John, like, I don't know how you forgive. And I'm like, well, your story is different from mine. Your parents haven't acknowledged their trauma. Your parents haven't stepped up to the plate and created a safe space for you to get it all out. So you're not only going through this process and you're a victim, the person who done the harm has not acknowledged that. So I've been very fortunate where I've had parents who have acknowledged that. I've had parents who supported this book, even though they're not portrayed the best into it, because they understand that this is what I needed to cope and to get through what I needed to get through to be successful.
I want to talk about accountability when we come forward here. There's a few things I want to ask about that in specific regard. You're listening to Jonathan Conyers. His book is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way. I'm Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Georgia Supreme Court is upholding the state's 6-week abortion ban. The court released the ruling this morning that sends challenges back to the lower court. First passed by the state back in 2019, the law prohibits abortion after 6 weeks, which is the time a fetal heartbeat is usually detected. The law could not go into effect until the overturning of the Roe v. Wade decision, which happened last year. New developments in the 2002 sniper shootings that terrorized the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Lee Boyd Malvo appeared in a Maryland court yesterday by video. The hearing was about his resentencing and how he'll be transferred from a Virginia prison to Montgomery County, Maryland. The 38-year-old African-American was 17 when the attacks left 10 people dead. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Seeing troubles as you travel in commerce, it's going to be a top in industry in Elysian Park. Somebody broken down the 110 South as you get to the 5. Looks like they're stuck in the right lane. The 110 South at Via Marisol, also a wreck work, and that's onto the right shoulder. Industry, a couple of tops for the 60 West at 7th. Carpooling with a crash right around Azusa Avenue, the busy drive. And then a broken down big rig on the 60 East as you get towards Azusa Avenue. That is stuck in the right lane. Commerce, the 710 North at the 5. Stalled vehicle cleared, but right around Atlantic Bandini, the busy drive. And then the 710 North to the 405 North transition. Look out for a wreck there onto the shoulder.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose from your fave 4, including a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It's time to jump it up. The NBA regular season tips off today with the Lakers at the defending champion Denver Nuggets. 4:30 tip-off this afternoon on TNT. The last time the Lakers saw the Nuggets, they got swept in the Western Conference Finals. 21st NBA season for LeBron James, his 6th with the Lakers. LeBron will be 39 on December 30th. An early milestone to keep your eye on. LeBron is the NBA's all-time leading scorer with 38,652 points. He's only 1,348 points away from 40,000. If LeBron plays all 82 games, which is unlikely, he would need to average 16.4 points. LeBron's career scoring average is 27.2. Keep your fingers crossed that LeBron can stay healthy. He missed 27 games last season. The Clippers open up Thursday night at home against Portland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
As the leaves change, leave the hiring to Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Anyone can choose to make a difference. You can help people succeed, rebuild after disasters, protect the environment, or feed the hungry. Not only will you make a difference for others, but for yourself. You can earn money for college, learn career skills, and make friendships that last a lifetime. Make a difference. Choose your future. Choose America.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More of Tavis Smiley and Jonathan Conyers. His book is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way. I'm on the back half of this hour, and we ain't even got to the good stuff yet. It's all good stuff. He's been laying it out quite nicely, but there's so much more to get to, and I can't do justice to this book even in 60 minutes. But everybody's talking about it, and there's a reason why people are in this town, in L.A., where I sit right now, are fighting to option this story. I'll tell you more about that when we come forward in this dialogue. But we were talking about accountability a moment ago, and I want to just circle back right quick to the story that I asked you to tell about what happened in the 8th grade when you really got into some trouble. Your friend who broke in this house with you got sent away.
Yeah.
And to your point, you got a slap on the wrist. All these years later, how do you process that?
That is one of the toughest things I process. Just giving you a little update, just trying to keep it safe space.
Sure.
It's funny, as soon as I landed in L.A., my friend called me. I won't say the name, and the name is not the real name in the book.
Right.
He wished me happy birthday from solitary confinement. He was able to get one call, and he decided to call me. And his life kind of spiraled out of control. He made a choice in 8th grade, and I think no black man going through that should have to make a choice that his life was worth nothing and that I had an opportunity to be somebody. And you talk about a 13-year-old was like, he didn't do nothing and I did it. And telling me, don't say nothing. You're going to be somebody. It's obvious you're going to be somebody. My story's already written. And he just recently got sentenced to 6 years in jail. Got a call a couple of weeks ago, broken ribs, naked, making him crawl for food. Literally in solitary confinement for the next 6 months, upstate New York. And it's tough. You get this survivor's guilt. You get this, what if I would have spoke up and said I did do this? What if I would have went against him and said, no, we both made this choice? What would my life would have been like if I go upstate? And so many times I tell people, and I talk to the youth all the time, and I travel a lot, and kids are asking me, you know, why are you saying you're lucky? Like, you're taking away from all the hard work you did. Like, I don't want to be lucky. And I'm like, it does take luck. Luck doesn't mean I don't work hard. But there were moments in my life where people came, where the magical angel came, where the magical village member came, where this could have went that way, and it did go that way for somebody, and it went that way for me. And I suffer with it a lot. It's one of the things that I don't know how to process it. I constantly ask myself, you know, did you do the wrong thing? Are you a sellout? Like, why didn't you speak up in that moment? You should have been in trouble too, or you made that poor choice too and you got away, or you turned the wrong corner when you was running that time and they didn't. And it's like you process these things over and over and over again. And I just say, you know, because of that, I've just said I'm going to do good. I'm going to do right. I'm going to try to help so many people so they don't end up in the situation. So luck is not involved. So it doesn't have to be I made this poor choice and hopefully I don't get caught. So I spend a lot of time trying to do right and try to do good and giving back because I feel guilty a lot.
How far apart were you and your friend in age?
A year.
A year apart. So you were 13.
And they were 12.
He was 12.
Yeah, but much older than me mentally.
Yeah, I got it. I raised that for I'd forgotten the exact ages, but and it's in the book, of course. But I raised that because I want to put a finer point on this. There's a code of the streets, as you well know, that snitches get stitches. But it is very rare. It is very, very rare. To your point, he was a year younger, but wiser in terms of the ways of the streets. I don't know that I've ever come across a 12-year-old who tells a 13-year-old, "Don't you say nothing. I'm gonna take this. I'm going to take this because you got life in front of you. You're going to be somebody." That is a lot of wisdom for a 12-year-old. Now, you do the crime, you do the time. I understand that. But I'm talking just about the wisdom of a 12-year-old saying to a 13-year-old, "Shut up. Don't say nothing." That I hear your point. That's a lot to deal with because whatever your friend saw in you at the age of 12, I mean, this book, I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, has so many meanings. As you well know, you wrote the book. But from your mama who thought about aborting you to your 12-year-old friend saying, you know, "You shut up, don't say nothing, I'm going to take this," and he goes away, and you get a slap on the wrist. Again, so many multiple meanings for this title. But that's a lot of wisdom for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, and I tell people now.
It's a lot of love for a 12-year-old.
A lot of love. To this day, you know, I get off the plane.
And he's calling you, get one call from solitary confinement.
And calls me.
How old are you now?
I'm 28. Oh, excuse me. I turned 29 yesterday. I'm 29.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you,
belated birthday.
Thank you.
So this happens when he's 12 and you're 13 and you're 29, and all these years later, one phone call from solitary confinement and you the person that he calls.
Yeah.
To wish happy birthday.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus.
And this is my brother. It sucks because he tells me how much I take care of him, and I've never turned my back on him. And it's like, you know, I think about, I went to college for 4 years. You know, we didn't talk much then because I was deep in my studies, and it's like, and he still has the wisdom, like, yo, dude, you know, I asked you to break in the house with me. You know, like you did everything I thought you would do. Like, you made me proud about you taking care of my nieces and nephews. Like, you know, I don't have a mom or dad to call. You pick up my phone. You know, you're working in the hospital. You're on the front lines with COVID and your career that nobody talks about. And you know, like, you always pick up the phone. You're there. You visit me. My books is always full. So, you know, and I try to pay it back, but it still feels like you're never enough. How much can I do when you're confined into a cell 23 hours a day?
I'm jumping ahead because, again, I can't do justice to all this in this book in a 60-minute conversation. But part of what makes your story blow up, and the reason this book exists, and the reason why folk are fighting out to option this as a film here in Hollywood, is because you were profiled on Humans of New York.
Yes.
I mean, you were profiled on Humans of New York. Everything just burst wide open for you in a beautiful way. Tell me about Humans of New York.
Yeah. So Humans of New York is a platform on Instagram that is very known to New Yorkers, and I would like to say all over the world because the reach it has. And Brandon Statton, I consider him a good friend of mine. And we worked together. I wouldn't say work together. I gave him a story a long time ago, and we kept that relationship, and he became like a mentor to me. And he asked to do a story on me, and typical John fashion, always trying to give back and right my wrongs, and I think that's what God put me on here to always give blessings to others. I was like, instead of doing a story on me, I would like to highlight a coach of mine, and this coach, and I know specifically why you talk about 8th grade, because of the decision I made in 8th grade, I was forced to go to a particular high school called Frederick Douglass Academy.
That's right.
In Harlem. That was part of my slap on the wrist. I had to do an after-school activity. They didn't want me running around in the Bronx doing anything wrong. So I end up stumbling into debate. And just a little fast forward, I know we at the second half of the interview. Yeah. I shared that story to Brandon, and Brandon thought the story was amazing. And, you know, he's like, hey, John, you got an eye for storytelling. And Brandon does his amazing thing. He dissects you for months and asks every little part of your story, and then he turned hundreds of pages into 12 paragraphs. I don't know how he does it. And he told the story about me and my coach. And when I met my coach, Deco was she. And Deco taught us how to debate, took us to Harvard, took us to Yale, and had kids in inner city Harlem traveling and going to get some of the top schools and waiving our fees and teaching us why our voice matters and, you know, feeding us sometimes when we didn't even have meals at night. And that story, Brandon told it beautifully in 12 paragraphs. And then eventually my teacher changed pronouns and became he, so it's a transgender. And the idea of all these black tough kids from the streets accepting that and respecting that and saying it doesn't matter what your identity is, like, you love us, we love you, and we're going to ride with you. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case for the whole school, and it led to my teacher leaving, and then my life kind of spiraled out of control because the debate became my safe space. Who would have knew that coming from robbing the house to now debating at Harvard a couple of years later, and then that being taken away from me, and then me going back to the streets. So that story just resonated with so many people, and we were so fortunate to have 33,000 people donate up to $1.3 million to a nonprofit that we created.
Hold that thought. We'll talk about the impact of that story on Humans of New York and how it raised over $1 million, 1.3, for this project that Jonathan co-founded. And still helps to lead. It's called the Brooklyn Debate League, and we'll talk about the Brooklyn Debate League. For those who know my story, they know I went to Indiana University on a debate scholarship. I was an outstanding student on the speech team in high school, ended up going to IU on a debate scholarship, national champion my senior year at Indiana University. So the debate part of the story turns me on in ways I can't even describe, but we'll talk about it when we come forward. You're listening to Jonathan Conyers on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
According to the Black Women's Blueprint, approximately 60% of Black girls will experience sexual abuse by the time they are 18. In addition, Black women also comprise 25 to 33% of all sexual and domestic violence victims in the city of LA. On Saturday, October 28th, the hashtag Standing for Black Girls 4th Annual Community Action and Rally to End Rape Culture and Sexual Violence will be held at 4343 Lemert Boulevard from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. This survivor-focused event is designed to raise awareness about the disproportionate impact of sexual and domestic violence on Black girls and Black communities while calling for more mental health resources for survivors. Students, artists, organizers, teachers, and Black women entrepreneurs will take to the streets with the Women's Leadership Project, Young Women's Freedom Center, and other community partners. The coalition invites everyone who supports Black women, girls, and queer youth to come to this event. For more info, go to www.womensleadershipla.org. www.womensleadershipla.org.
Thinking about hosting a podcast and don't know where to start? Morris Media Studios has you covered. We're a professional podcast and voiceover studio located in Lemert Park. We specialize in recording and live streaming audio and video podcasts. Let us help you set up, record, and distribute your podcast. Hosting a podcast is a great way to bring awareness to your business, product, or good cause. For more info, visit morrismediastudios.com or give us a call at 323-815-4204.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the Evanon, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
He's rooting for everybody Black. Everybody Black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, so I was just saying to Jonathan during that break, it's amazing that all that he had gone through in the 8th grade and being sent to Frederick Douglass School, and he's in some trouble. His 12-year-old friend saves him, gives him a way of escape because he wasn't supposed to be here, and here he is anyway. And the answer to all that ends up being the debate team. I mean, go figure that he ends up being on the debate team, and that really starts to turn and change his life. Let me fast forward some years down the road and ask you to tell me now about the Brooklyn Debate League, of which you are the co-founder.
Yeah, so the Brooklyn Debate League, what we do is we give speech and debate to at-risk kids all throughout New York. So one of the things that I suffered with when I was in high school is that there was never no funding. Mm-hmm. You know, dressing up, Harvard Invitational, Columbia Invitational. Yeah, it requires a lot of traveling to do speech and debate. It requires resources. It requires fees. And a lot of times, a lot of at-risk schools don't have these means. I was very fortunate to have a coach like Deco who subsidized all these trips for a lot of kids that was suffering in New York who didn't have the means to do it. So when we created the Brooklyn Debate League, we wanted to do that for so many other kids. It was so frustrating. You know, you look at basketball, football, and all these athletic
funding
sports.
Funding
like crazy.
Yeah.
Kids don't have to pay $1. But for me to go on Saturday to speak about the Supreme Court justice, to speak about academic tracking, to speak about nuclear warfare, to speak about policies occurring in the United Nations, which is going to be our future lawyers, our future judges. There's not a lot of people who look like me in it, and they're charging fees for kids. What kid you know from the projects wants to go on Saturday and speak about it? It's hard enough to motivate them to get to this and let them know, you know, this may not look cool. It may not make you the most popular person in school, but you are going to be the person to change your community. So it was very frustrating to see how the speech and debate word operated. And we said, let's create a nonprofit where we got rid of that and we just let kids be able to have a safe space and be able to talk about powerful things. And then hopefully we'll generate more future politicians, lawyers, and people of color who can speak about these issues and have access to these top universities. So we did that, and DECO started that in 2017. I work in medicine, so COVID hit a couple of years later, and it wasn't really no traction. The only people who was donating to the nonprofit was me and DECO. My mentor was shot. A lot of people don't know us. I'm a respiratory therapist, so I run ventilators at NYU Medical Center in New York. So I was on the front lines. I was the one tubing people. I was the one running the ventilators. It was constant, a lot going on in our nation. So for years, all I could do was offer the Brooklyn Debate League was a check. And that wasn't enough when you're helping hundreds of kids who you literally have to pay for everything. You have to subsidize summer camps. They can't afford $8,000 summer camps to talk about real life things, which is weird. They couldn't afford these things. So when my story was kind of getting a little popular and Brandon went to do a story with me, I was like, hey, can you highlight what we do for the kids, and can you highlight what DECO done for me to got us there? In that moment, you never know what's going to happen. I just was like, I just want to highlight this. DECO was like, let's just stop the nonprofit. We can't do it. And overnight, and when I say overnight,
the money started
in 24 hours.
Yeah.
In 24 hours. After when paragraph 9 hit, I started crying. And I'm around all my boys. Yeah. So everybody's looking like, yo, what's good with him? Like, the whole world, he's trending. Like, and I'm crying because I'm looking at it like, bro, everybody DM, thousands, everybody know me. Like, it was very hard to just be vulnerable in that space.
Hold that thought. When we come forward, our remaining moments, we'll get more into the impact that Humans of New York story had and all the money it raised to help him with this program, the Brooklyn Debate League, that helps these kids in the city of New York. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Jonathan Conyers. His book is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here. If you've been listening to this conversation, you know that has multiple meanings. The subtitle, Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way. I got to find my way through the next 4 minutes before this conversation wraps and tie a couple bows on a couple things. So finish your story right quick about the success of the of the story and the money that it raised for the Brooklyn Debate League.
Yeah, so once we raised that money, we went right to work. We started to create curriculums and partner with schools. About this year, we are probably working with over 400 students. Last year, we started 3 teams throughout New York City. So we partner with schools, and I had 14 kids make it to the New York State Championship, and I had 4 kids make it to nationals in their first 6 months of debating. So we have a curriculum, and these are kids
mostly black and brown.
Yes, mostly black and brown kids, and we do have a network where a lot of schools who may not need the resource of the Brooklyn Debate League, they still partner with us. So we have schools like amazing schools like Berkeley Carroll, Scarsdale, and Poly Prep, and schools that does have $50,000 tuition and have the resources still debate with our students, because we think those students can learn from our kids and our kids can learn from those kids. So we do have a very tight-knit group, and we work with all kids from all different backgrounds.
And what happens when your kids end up spanking some of these kids from these elite schools?
I'm pretty sure some of their parents is mad because they're paying $60,000 a year. But our kids get a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened to me when I was at Harvard, when I was at Columbia. It's this idea of I do belong here, that my zip code or what I'm going through right now doesn't define me. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things when you see the kid have that moment, that moment of, I didn't know what this side looked like, but I'm in this side, and I'm not just here, I'm doing my thing. And it's beautiful to see.
Your zip code does not have to be your destiny.
Yes.
It does not have to be. All right, let me ask you right quick. We talked about your mother and father in this conversation, and all that they went through, and how that relationship was challenged in a variety of ways. Yesterday was your birthday. So I'm curious as to how your parents are doing, the two that brought you here. How are they doing all these years later?
They're doing much better.
Yeah.
They're still married. They're not going nowhere.
Yeah.
Whitney and Bobby Brown together. They're not going nowhere. They need a reality TV show.
Yeah.
It's good, man.
They gotta be really proud of you, though.
Yeah, mama called me yesterday, told me she loved me. She always tell me it's crazy. I go on the station, I was like, you know they're gonna ask about you, right? She's like, yeah, you better tell the truth. Let them know what's up. Let them know how good you're doing. So, we have a great conversation. We had a great convo. My dad's a man of few words. Sent me a long paragraph yesterday. It was emotional, man. I love you, kid. So proud of you. I ain't opened the book yet. Probably won't. I don't want to know what you wrote about me. But I love you, kid. Can't wait to see you to get back. So, man, it's a lot of love. It's great.
Yes.
And they're still going through it, they're figuring it out every day. But much better, doing much better. And I'm proud of them.
As you should be. Here's my exit question in 60 seconds. The book is called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here. Why do you think? Have you figured out all these years later why you are here?
Yeah, I figured it out. And I'm here to help people. I'm here to inspire. I'm here to share my story. I'm here to create safe spaces for individuals. I'm here to teach people how to build a village. I'm here to teach people how to not look at people on the surface and not judge people, and understand that everybody that you meet throughout your life can teach you something. And how do you turn those lessons into something powerful and then ultimately live a life well lived?
They're fighting over it here in Hollywood. One of the reasons I can tell you, little birdie told me, one of the reasons he's in town is because he's got meetings. He's got meetings. And they're fighting over the rights to this story. It's called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here, Finding My Voice, Finding My People, Finding My Way, as seen in Humans of New York, written by our friend Jonathan Conyers. Jonathan Conyers, great book, great conversation. Have great meetings here in L.A. and safe travels back to New York City.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Good to have you. Appreciate you, man. That's our program. Back tomorrow to do all over again, Lord willing. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, like Jonathan Conyers, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network.